Dear listeners, hello, how are you? I am back with another episode. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and this message I received it a couple of weeks ago via Facebook Messenger. Then I had to ask one of our admins to give us a translation. The translation reads like this. Hello, my brother, how are you? I am a young lady who is aged 32 years and I am married. Even though I am married, Brother Nashi, but I have failed to give my husband a child, and the reason why I cannot fall pregnant, I know, but I am afraid that if I tell my husband that if I do not confess the sins of my father and the sins of my mother, the possibility of us never having a child in this marriage are quite great. I am afraid that if I share with my husband this story, maybe he will divorce me, and I don't know what will happen to me if my husband divorces me. Me and some of my relatives, we have managed to go to this other witch doctor, and when we visited that witch doctor in secret, even though as a family we had our own suspicions, but when we went to visit that witch doctor for the consultation, that is when we came to the conclusion that all of our suspicions indeed were true. Brother Nashi, I am a pastor and I am a pastor's wife, but when we visited that witch doctor in secret as a family, that witch doctor then pointed at me. Then the witch doctor told me that it was my duty to follow in the footsteps of my mother and to follow in the footsteps of my own father, and to carry on with the work that was left behind by my father and by my mother. I am afraid to follow in those footsteps, Brother Nashi, because there was no honesty. It was all fake. There was no truth in it. My own father was a pastor first. Then my mother then went to school. Then she also graduated as a pastor. Later on in life, my father said that he was a prophet, and my own mother was then a prophetess. But I know that behind them there was a dark power, and that witch doctor told me and my relatives that when my parents died, they left all of those things that they were using to prophesy and to perform a lot of miracles, all of those charms, they left them behind so that I can continue in their footsteps. My own father, he was one of the members who started this other big church that is in our country. I am even afraid to mention the name of that church because my husband will find out. We grew up in an environment whereby our parents were respected people in our community. My father, as I told you that when we were growing up, he was a pastor, and he was known as a pastor who could make the blind to see, who could make the crippled to walk. My father and my mother and his team, he used to visit a lot of hospitals so that he can perform a lot of miracles there. My father had his own show, and his show, it was slotted on a Sunday morning. Even on this other local radio station, he had his own slot on Sunday evening. When he would go on radio, then he would preach and pray for people. A lot of people would testify that indeed when my father was praying, all of their sicknesses had left their bodies. But what people did not know is that my father was a witch doctor, and it was an inheritance that he got from my own uncle who had the same gift, and that is the same gift that was left for me by my father and my mother when they died. The gift that my uncle had, the same gift that he left for my own father, was a gift that was from the gods. He had this talent to attract customer, but he used to attract them in a spiritual way. When my uncle died, he then left that gift as an inheritance to my own father, who was still young at that time. My father then tried to become a traditional healer, but he could not get any customers. When he found out that he could not get any customers in the same way that my own uncle could attract his customers. That is when he went to seek for more powers. When he went to seek for more powers, that is when he was told that if he was going to be a clean traditional healer, there was no money anymore left in that business, because people were searching after witch doctors. As that witch doctor was speaking with us, that is when I realized that it seemed as if traditional healers, they do not have a lot of powers, but witch doctors, they are the ones that have a lot of powers. So when my father had gone to consult with this other traditional healer, that is when he was told that if he wanted to go ahead with this business of him being just a clean herbalist, then he was not going to get rich because the business was really going down. But if he wanted to have a lot of money, he needed to transform himself so that he can become a very powerful witch doctor. That is when he was given a snake, and this snake, it stays in the mountains back in our village. And growing up, it always amazed me because my own father and my mother, out of nowhere, they would just decide that they will be traveling back to the village. Sometimes soon after the church service, they would just drive out of church, so much that we would have to walk back home, not knowing where our mother and our father had gone to. When they would come back, we would notice that my mother and my father, they would be smelling a lot of herbs. After the death of my mother and my father, that is when we realized that whenever my mother and my father would go missing, they will be in the mountains with that snake so that they can renew the covenant that they had done with their snake. All of their powers, they come from that snake. That snake, Brother Nashi, it is still there in the mountains, and time is no longer on my side. I am supposed to travel back to the village so that I can climb up the mountain so that I can renew that covenant that was made between the snake and my parents. And that witch doctor told me that he was willing to assist me if I wanted to become a very powerful pastor, as powerful as my father was. I don't know what to do anymore, Brother Nashi, because I am quite desperate. On the other hand, I want to save my marriage because that witch doctor told me that it was the snake who closed up my womb so that I cannot have any children in this marriage that I am in. The witch doctor told me that when the snake closed up my womb, it was given the permission to do so by my parents. My own mother told the snake that if it closes up my womb, and by the time that I'll be going around looking for a solution as to why I am not able to give my own husband a child, that is when I will be told that if I want to have a child, I have to climb up the mountain so that I can renew the covenant that is there between my parents and that snake that stays in the mountain. That is the snake that my father used to heal and perform the miracles that he used to perform. In the early 90s, my father and some of the founding members of our church, they used to travel around our country, and my father, he was a well-known man who used to perform a lot of miracles. A lot of people, even up until today, they do visit his grave thinking that indeed he was a man of our time, a man who was sent by the Lord. But I know that my father, he was nothing but a witch doctor who was pretending to be a pastor. And the kind of powers that my own father had, I have seen that some of these so-called powerful pastors, they have the same powers that my father had. And I keep on asking myself this question: are all of these so-called men of God just witch doctors pretending to be pastors? Brother Nashi, as much as I don't want to become a fake pastor as my parents were, but their spirits are haunting me. Recently, I saw my own father at church as I was busy preaching in front of the congregation. I just saw the spirit of my own father. I wanted to run away, but I kept on praying and praying until his spirit disappeared from amongst the congregation. I have tried praying and fasting, but the more that I fast, the more things become clear to me that prayer is not going to save me. There is no way to hide. I have to become a witch doctor, but I don't have to become a witch doctor in the open. I have to be a closet witch doctor. In the public, I have to pretend as if I was sent by God. I know that I can perform a lot of miracles, but I can only perform those miracles if I accept to become a witch doctor. Dear Brother Nashi, please post my own confession, for it is so heavy on my own heart. Dear listeners, right there was a translation of a message that I received, hoping that the story was not lost in translation. If you have any story that you want me to share with the rest of the world, please do not hesitate to contact me or to contact any of our admins via our email address. I'll be back with another episode.